Databricks One has been renamed to? If you're curious, listen in. Welcome everyone, this is our weekly podcast about Databricks release notes. This time I'm alone, but don't be afraid, we will have Gabor back in the next edition. So my name is Benedek, and let's go into the features that we'd like to review. Let's get started with an announcement by Databricks that Databricks One has been renamed to Genie. Genie as it is. So if you feel like confused, that's because they reused the name Genie quite a lot recently. So let's have a look into what was the renaming all about and why it still makes sense. So first of all, let me remind you with the renamings that happened recently. So Databricks One has been renamed now to Genie. Okay, simple as that. Of course, that follows what was used to be called as Genie before. Now it is more clear that it is called Genie Spaces. And of course, you don't need to forget that we used to have Databricks Assistant, which is now, since a while, it's called Genie Code. Okay, so these are the three renamings that happened recently. Now everything seems to be Genie. Most important is that now Databricks One is called Genie. Of course, it makes sense because now whenever you have any conversational analytics on Databricks, your interface would be through some Genie Spaces, but now the entire ecosystem which provides conversational analytics to you is called Genie. Okay, so now everything is Genie. Now the fun thing is that it comes with some nice update. You can already see that being reflected in the UI, of course. So whenever you would like to change into the Databricks One UI, now you will see Genie. There was a nice blog post, and one thing that it also highlighted that there is going to be an app that you can use to interact with Databricks. So practically that's Genie. Now it's called Genie, the app that you have conversational analytics right from your mobile phone. Of course, it makes sense. It is an easy interface for business users, although I believe most of them would typically prefer to use their internal chat applications to do the same, like Slack or Microsoft Teams. Coming back to the figure, there's a nice improvement that has been introduced into Genie Spaces. Now you can edit Genie Spaces using Genie Code, and you can interact with Genie Spaces using Genie. Okay, everything is through Genie, but there's three distinct features of Databricks. So what does this actually mean? Let's look into a Genie Space I have here. So in this Genie Space, you might want to focus on one specific domain, and you might want to introduce instructions, join clauses, SQL expressions. So now what you can use is Genie Code. And let me ask Genie Code to create instructions for this Genie Space. Okay, and practically Genie Code has the skills to figure out how to do that and what to do. So it will introduce, you will see it's checking the data that is available in this Genie Space, and we'll come up with some suggestions on how to manage this Genie Space so that it behaves how we would expect in the business user context. So what can Genie Space do to improve its accuracy? You can add general instructions like expressing the business terms, specifying typical joins that it can use across SQL queries. You can specify SQL expressions and wall SQL queries that are often used in this context. So what you will see here is that Genie Code has come up with some suggestions on the instructions, on the join snippets, on key measures and filters, which are practically the SQL expressions. And let me go ahead and ask Genie to add all these instructions. Okay, it came up with some tasks to execute. I will allow both the instructions and the knowledge snippets. So let me go ahead, and we'll see that this is going to be populated here in the settings tab. Okay, this is practically the same as you would use an AI model to generate its skills so that it can use those skills to do something else. Okay, great improvement. I think it really helps getting started with all of this stuff. Of course, you will always need to review all of this stuff, but it's a great feature that you can now use Genie Code as an AI assistant to help you develop a Genie space. Excellent. There's some nice other improvements for Genie. Remember that it's Databricks One now. Now you can introduce scheduled tasks in Genie. What does this mean? You will need to go back to the chat interface, so click on chat, and now you can create scheduled tasks. Now the nice thing is that you can create it using a chat interface. So let's say I'd like to create a scheduled task that gives me the flight delay report every morning. Okay. And again, Genie is using some of its skills internally to create the scheduled task. We'll figure out what data it can use to create the report. And we'll ask some follow-up questions. Okay, what information I need? I would need the flight delays by airport in UTC time zone. Okay, of course, it also asked me about this schedule, so it follows up with me. 8 a.m. will be good. All right, once we're done, you can see here there is something that happened. It created me the scheduled task. Practically, now I can go back to scheduled task, and I will have this flight delay by airport report. And what happens practically is that Genie will write a prompt for me in a scheduled time, let's say every morning, and it will send me an email about what has happened, and I can also adjust it according to my preferences. We are reproducing the same idea as reports in a dashboard word, but now with natural language, that I know that I will be interested in this every morning, so I can get it scheduled and Genie will automatically run it for me. Excellent. Coming back to some further Genie Space enhancements. Now, if you go back to the Genie Space, we have a daily digest view in the monitoring tab. So if I quit here Genie Code, we have this weekly digest overview. It's just a bit of a UI improvement to see how our Genie Space is behaving. And now we can also use PDF file uploads directly into Genie Space to analyze context using natural language. With that, let's continue with the AI features. There's quite a lot that we can talk about. So let's look into my picks. First is that now you can access GPT 5.5 and 5.5 Pro as a Databricks hosted model using the Unity AI Gateway. This is pretty cool. It is now usual that all the new frontier models are available as soon as they are available by the provider. So just to verify that, you can see GPT 5.5 Pro and 5.5 are available since April 24. Go to the OpenAI announcement. You can look at the date here. This is April 23rd. So practically on the same day or day after, they are already available through Databricks as a provider, which is pretty cool because now you can integrate these new frontier models into your workflow. So there's no delay in picking the best and the greatest. So what would you use these models for? So typically, if you like to create an agentic workflow, you will need the tools and you will need the brain for that agent, sub-agent, and MCP. So how you can put them together is Databricks Agentic Framework. And now there are two nice additions that makes it easier to manage or create Databricks-based agents. So one is that for the Supervisor Agent, that is, the brain of other agents that can drive other agents, can be created using the Databricks SDK. So just a minor improvement, you could have created it earlier already with the API. Now it's included in the SDK, so you can create a Python script that creates the supervisor agent, and you can configure all that supervisor agents using a Python script and run it on Databricks. The supervisor agent now supports further tools. In fact, it now supports custom MCP servers and custom agents through Databricks Ops. So what does this mean? If you go to the Agents tab, if you create an agent, now there's a lot of things that you can create in an agent, but if you are into creating a supervisor agent, you would need to create its tools that it can supervise. So what can it supervise? It can supervise a lot of things like Genie Spaces or other agent endpoints directly, unit catalog functions. And it can also use Databricks App as something that it can supervise. So why would you use Databricks Apps? Because in a Databricks Apps, you can host your custom MCP server. Whatever you like to do with MCP, you can now host on Databricks App, or you can host a custom agent, which now is available through a Supervisor Agent as a sub agent within your framework. Okay, so here, if I had any deployed, it would be available here. Any MCP or agent named Databricks Apps would be listed here. The last thing to add to the whole agentic framework is now that MLflow trace storage in Unity Catalog is now public preview, which practically means you can track the traces what the models do in Unity Catalog using OpenTelemetry protocol, which makes it easier to track what is happening within the models and refine your workflow. Let's go back to the preview announcements. Workspace-based environments now are in GA. What does this mean? Whenever you have a notebook with serverless compute, you can select it and you would like to configure the serverless runtime. You can select the base environment, so practically what are the libraries that are pre-installed, and you can have custom libraries defined on the workspace level. So you can have your, let's say, company libraries installed by default in a company specific standard base environment. This is a nice thing now that you can customize your base environment and you don't need to just rely on Databricks updating their packages and whatever. Okay, so if you go to custom, you can define its YAML configuration. You can create your own custom base environment. This is GA. A few other GA announcements. Confluence connector is now GA. Zendesk support connector is GA. So again, we have more tools to get the data from. Attribute-based access control, or ABAC, is now also GA. We have seen it working very nicely. Practically, you can define tags on your data and filter based on, let's say, if this is PII or not and who has access to PII or not. A few other GA announcements. Disabling tasks in Lakeflow jobs is also now GA. So you can just simply turn off or on some of the tasks in Lakeflow jobs. And my favorite is the Lakeflow pipeline editor. If you haven't seen that Lakeflow pipeline editor, check it out once again. I think this has brought a really big improvement in how the pipelines can be edited now. So it's just the first template pipeline that I've created. So the pipeline editor is whenever you create a new pipeline, it already uses it. It's practically a combination of the code that you can write, the tables it references. We have the pipeline graph view now migrated into here, and all the files that are related to this pipeline are now introduced here. Okay, so this is the new pipeline editor. I think it really made Delta Live tables, now of course called Spark Declarative Pipelines, really usable and easy to develop. And so I really like it a lot. Adding to the pipelines, another announcement says the Spark Declarative Pipeline updates are retained for 60 days. Okay, so practically we're talking about these past runs of what has been happened. So you can go to the monitor tab and all these are now retained for 60 days by default. There used to be 30 days. So again, just giving something as extra for us. Thank you very much. Coming back to SQL updates, now there is an even larger 5x large SQL Warehouse available in public preview. So practically, if you like to have a really big warehouse, now you can choose from the cluster size 5x large. You can see you will consume loads of DBUs per hour. So only consider this size if you really want to use a lot of DBUs at a time, but of course, it sometimes makes sense if you have a very large organization, a lot of people using the SQL warehouses, and you might have super big queries that are being executed on this warehouse. Okay, so now you can scale it up even further. As last, there are two other nice, small, tiny improvements that I would like to show to you. If you would like to analyze your data right away in the output of your query, you can go ahead and do it. Let me go ahead and look at the Skyflow bronze weather events data. What has been added is the native data profiling for the results table in the SQL editor. So for example, let's say we have the severity of these errors. I select this column, I go into these details, and I will instantly get some profile view. So I can see most of the events are low severity, where the lowest amount of the events are critical. So looks good. The nice thing is that the exact same functionality is available in notebooks. So if I would be going ahead and select star from skyflow.bronze.weather events. So once I have the results, okay, finally I have the results. So if I like to look into the airport's name, again, I have this small icon that will give me the overview. And it seems that most of the weather events are from JFK International Airport. It doesn't seem to be right. Earlier, we had this data profile option in the same output, but it's not right away available for in the table output. So it needs to be generated separately. Now this is right away available. Very cool, and makes it easier to analyze the data. So that's all for today. I will come with other updates and Gabor for the next time. I will make sure that you will have all the links for the release notes and the relevant shared information in the description of the video. So look into that if you'd like to follow up on these details. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.